welcome to DPX-AI. I am Larry Vogel, and I will be your host tonight. Let's get started.
Show anymore. I'm appreciative because when Donna opened up the digital art stuff, they kicked digital art out of the fine art show downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
There was no home for it. I exhibited in 1999, and then in 2000, Donna opened it up in the photo show. And I was really appreciative of having that venue, even though it really didn't belong in the photo show, or it did, she said so. And I thought that up until AI, the adaptation of all of these new technologies went fairly smoothly overall.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Gene's idea that if the judges can't see it, it's fine, it's okay. But then when we started to interface, getting the AI stuff in 2018, I think, 2018, 2019, then that totally changed it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, then I didn't know how that would compete with somebody who is as good a craftsperson as Char or some of the other people that were submitting stuff in there that really spent a lot of time working on something and really understood the craft of that. And that's not to say that there isn't craft or can't be craft in using AI within your workflow. But I think we have to understand it a little more, and I think there needs to be a digital art show with digital art judges that's separate from photography and maybe separate from, maybe it's part of photography, but maybe it's part of somewhere hybrid between the upstairs and downstairs shows.
Yeah, well, and again, we're kind of getting off on a tangent, but it's interesting that, these are things that need to be discussed. But I think the thing that then comes up is like, so at what point does it cross the line or not cross the line? This is where that sort of thing, like, okay, so I used AI to generate a background, but I used my image to put in front of it. Or, there can be this weird thing like, okay, we're going to say at least 50% of the image has to come from your camera. So it's not measurable, right? So how do you measure that? And so, I've always made the joke like, oh, sorry, your image only came in at 49% camera usage. You can't put it in anymore. So it's a weird thing, right? So and this is where, again, sort of that discussion I'm talking about having is this idea that so we create a rule, and then we have to like play this, where is that dividing line then? And like now with all of these functions, now slowly gearing up inside of Photoshop, like, okay, we're going to accept the fact that AI now can find my sky and build me a mask. It's like I could argue the same thing that, the guy who knows how to sketch, wants to argue that you can't use a projector. Was like, well, I had to learn how to do a sky selection the hard way, so everybody should have to. That seems to be kind of this weird sort of historical reference that we have about, new technology. Well, we had to do it the hard way. That's the nature of progress, right? Things do get easier, which means then, you have to become, I would say, you have to become a better artist as well as a better technician. That's the interesting thing about photography is that it is definitely a technical medium. I was just talking to somebody today. I go, the weird thing about being a photographer is you have to learn how to go out in the field. You have to get to certain places and locations, create a composition, know how to mechanically operate your camera, bring that file in as a raw file and learn how to process a raw file, learn how to bring it into Photoshop and apply whatever needs to be done there to create a processed image. And again, in all fairness, I have also this weird thing that I think everybody should have to print their own images also, because this idea of sending a file to a lab, right? The only thing that sort of saves that is that now that it's digital, the file content, the lab's job really is to only output something that matches the file, right? And that's sort of the argument, like, well, what does it look like on your screen versus that screen, and so on. And so that kind of can be the argument. Well, anybody could print the image for you, but there there are a lot of mediums where this happens, like say sculpture, making a bronze. Not everybody pours their own bronzes. I mean, that's a very complex and takes more than one person usually to pull it off. It's a team of people, glass workers, same thing. So there's a lot of mediums where it's not a single-handed, one person creating the whole thing. But so anyhow, as photographers, we have to learn all those technical aspects to get to the end to hang something on the wall. How much of it then using the machine, like going back to the idea that there are now there's all those topaz filters are AI oriented. They're doing noise removal and sharpening and all those other things. Well, we had to do it the hard way. We used to have to do 10 stages of sharpening in increments in order to get it. There's all this complex stuff we used to do, and you go all the way back to film, right? And we used to have to load sheet film in the dark and process it in the dark, and then do all. It was really pretty complex. And there's that, I think, a great quote from Ansel where he said that back in his day, film days, he said, if it were any easier to make an image, there'd be a lot more people that called themselves photographers. And I go, guess what? It just got infinitely easier. So we're now in that era where, yeah, I mean, compared to setting up a darkroom and printing, prints, with chemistry, it certainly got a lot easier than it was in Ansel's day. That's for damn sure. So yeah. So I'm going to buy myself a flute and call myself a flautist. Is it flout? Greg plays flute, right?
Yeah, but I've never played a flout.
No,
So I always call
a flutist, a flautist.
a flutist.
Flautist.
Yeah. All right.
I,
Go ahead, Kaz.
Larry, I have I didn't know when the right time to say this, but I have a unrelated, tangentially related comment or not comment. Gosh, I'm getting old and my words just escape. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is our good buddy Valo Roberto,
Yeah.
curated talk, is curating a microtonal bassoonist, a famous bassoonist at the Bonita Museum. He's going to play a composition using 28 notes per, not 28, 128 notes per octave.
Wow.
If you can imagine hearing the difference between 128 notes, 28 divisions of an octave, and then playing it. Anyway, this is pretty cool. But anyway, it's at the Bonita Museum, April 6th at 2 p.m. So just wanted to make the announcement was the word that I was I was searching for a while ago.
Wow, Kaz, that's embarrassing. I'm
Yeah,
joking because
it
I'm in the same boat. Sometimes the simplest things escape you, your mind so easily. Yeah, so I know that you guys have been working on that. Go ahead.
Yeah. I also sent you another email.
Got it.
It's AI related. Yeah.
I got it.
Okay.
Yep, everything is
I'm
good.
done.
All right, so let's let me get everything situated here. Let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at what people sent in. Another person has jumped in. Welcome, Fidel. Fidel, I think, is new to the meeting. I usually try to put these in the order that I got them, but I got lost because everything was coming in at the last minute. So I'm just going to kind of go with them in the order that I have them here. And I wasn't sure, Shark, because I have your images here on top alphabetically anyhow. Was there any of these that you wanted to share for tonight, or were you planning on using them Monday morning? You're muted if you're going to talk.
You're muted.
You need to unmute.
So sorry. I'm going to do it on Monday morning.
Okay. I'll save them for then.
Thank you.
All right. I put Greg Clamp. You know who you are.
Close enough. These are all pretty much Mid-Journey to start with a lot of Photoshop editing. This one I just did today. It's Couch Surfer, and not much. I just kind of like how it threw things together from it really followed the prompt, and I love the waves and the Hokusai kind of
I was going to say,
effect,
did you
but
use his name for the style?
no, I
No.
didn't.
Wow, interesting.
Really, I just described a guy sitting on a couch. Actually, I think it was a couple sitting on a couch um, uh, on a wave in the ocean, and it threw in the shark and all this other stuff.
Wow.
And it was much a little more compact, and it cut off the top of the shark's head and stuff. So I expanded all that with using Photoshop. And,
Yeah, that's
Why are you calling that a shark?
because of the teeth.
That's an interesting beast. That looks,
Sharkish.
the eye looks like it's from a bird or like a predator bird, and the fangs look like from a lizard or something. It's an amazing creature.
It's got a fin way back there at the left side of it.
Yeah.
It's not really sharky. It's
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We had this discussion when we did the thing at the museum, but this whole idea about, is this process, or is AI really, showing any creativity? And it's like every time I see things like this, I go, it's more creative than me. I'm just amazed sometimes at what it puts together. And Greg has shown like several images, a lot of images that were just like, wow. And sometimes, I mean, this still kind of becomes that question, and Greg and I've talked about it. We've talked about it here too, about that, the role of you as, what role do we have in this process? And, sometimes it can be a lot, and sometimes it can be very little. Do you want to talk about that, Greg?
yeah, and this is it's weird because I put a certain amount of work into this, but the whole central 2/3 of it is mostly generated by the machine, by my prompt, there's some time that I do iterations and iterations of the prompt. So and then I'm making selections of the stuff, but I can't paint those kind of waves like that. I know that that's not my work.
Mm-hmm.
I got rid of a lot of distractions, and I added things, and I did paint in little pieces here and there, and I added the stars, and so that if I go out and take a photograph of something, that's not my work either. That's a building that somebody built, or that's a nature scene that appeared out of nothing to do with me. I just happened to go in and take a look at it and see something special there. So I've always kind of felt that way about photography, that's not really mine either. But as I do it more, I own it more. I own the process, because I have those things you were talking about, Larry. I've learned where to go and how to set up and how to frame something and how to pick out what the story is and understand lighting and all that. And I talk about that as the target, the tools, the processing, and the presentation. Mm-hmm. And learning to master all those pieces of it. And there's something in this process too, where the target, I target at something with a prompt, and I get something completely different. In this case, this was probably one of the more closer to what I was hoping for. Mm-hmm. So my target ended up a little closer to what I was looking for. And then most of it is in the processing and reimagining and adding and subtracting and changing lighting and things like that. Would I call it my own? No, I would put put AI on it, say Greg Clamped AI. I have a different logo for the stuff that is that hybrid, because it's really not mine. And I don't feel comfortable calling it mine at this point, unless it's specifically in an AI show.
Well, like I said about my own work too, is that it's a collaboration between you and the
Yeah.
machine, right? So it doesn't happen all by itself. The machine's not going to start writing. I mean, maybe one day it will start writing its own prompts, but right now, in order to get an image at all, you have to be a part of it. And I love your comment about the same thing about photography, because yes, anybody could go stand in front of something and take the same picture as anybody else. But the one part of this, though, that becomes, I think, the important part, and I always share the Ansel Adams example that I had experienced so many years ago, is that moonrise image. And if you see that straight print, because he didn't do this a lot, where it showed you like, oh, here's what it looked like when I started, and here's where it looked like when I ended. But the whole point of it then is, yes, anybody could create the negative. Yes, it's a matter of mechanics of pulling over and setting up the camera, framing the scene. On a wide shot like that, you'd have to move quite a ways before you actually altered the composition by much. But the point really comes into how that negative gets interpreted. And I think Ansel's example of it was amazing, because he was a musician also, and his idea was that the negative was the score and the print was the performance. And you could give that score to anybody and they might perform it differently, and you might perform it differently night after night after night. And so there is that part of it, I think, that is still probably the most important thing of what we do, because I think even a painter has that same sense of, yeah, I could if I'm just painting from scratch out of my head, that's one thing. But if I'm actually painting from a reference, if I'm outside painting plein air or I'm painting from a photograph, then anybody could learn those techniques to get the image from in front of you onto the canvas. But the more interesting part of the whole process then becomes part of that interpretation of what's in front of you. So I don't know. I think I mean, I mentioned my experience the first hour or two that I was inside Mid Journey. I had the same experience that Greg's talking about, and it's like, wow, I feel completely removed from this. All I'm doing is making suggestions, and it does things. But there's still sort of, I think, in the sense where you're creating the entire image from a prompt, there's still a role of you kind of as sort of a creative editor, in that sense that you put in a prompt and something comes back and you go, that's kind of cool, but I'd actually like to take it into another direction. And so I sort of redesigned the prompt. Or again, like you're saying, take them into Photoshop. I mean, this is, I think, a huge advantage for those of us who do photography, those of us who understand Photoshop, as opposed to people that don't have that skill, that are just prompting and getting images. They don't have that sort of second layer that we can add on top of the AI process, and that is to bring it in to Photoshop or any kind of editing program and do more than what just came out of the AI machine. And so yeah, I mean, so at what point, yeah, would it become, I don't know, it's up, I think it's entirely up to the individual how you approach this. But I also admire the ability for us, to be able to say, yeah, no, I'm not trying to fool you to think that I made this thing from scratch. That yes, it is an AI image. I think that goes a long way towards this discussion about, I guess, can this be art? Can it be an art form? Right? I mean, it's a whole new medium that didn't exist before. So I've said it before. I am really anxious as time goes by for more and more creative people to get their hands on this and to see where it goes. I mean, this is, we're most of us are only 2 or 3 years into the ability to even do this stuff. And if you think about, what do you think the first 3 years of painting looked like, or the first 3 years of photography? It's we're miles away from where we started, and now you got this brand new medium. I mean, we're just like barely out of the gate with this thing, and I think that it's going to be amazing to see where this goes. Now, this week they announced Midjourney has a new function in it where, say, like this character that you have, if you decided, okay, I want to do a series, but I want this character to be in all the images. So there's a thing called character reference, and I think it's just a --cref, and it will reference the character in your, if you put this guy in, it'll reference your character into the upcoming prompts. So this, again, like if you're going to be creating something, say you were going to do a storybook or something, or like in this case, you wanted this person to appear, you can reference this character over and over again, and it will keep coming into your new scene. So, and those are all new things that have just come up in the last couple of days. Now, Firefly has a new feature within the last few weeks also, where it's kind of a step behind Mid-Journey. They're now allowing you to put in reference images also, where you can reference style and you can also reference content also. So there's two separate places where you can put images in. So this starts to become a thing, I think, where with this AI process, where you can start putting in your own photographs, your own 2 or 3 images, and blending them together using the process. That starts to feel more like, yours, or you can take some ownership on it, because I think you're beginning with your own images. And, these were kind of things that I wanted, to talk about last year. Not just this idea that we write a prompt and get an image back, but now here we are in Photoshop with all kinds of AI stuff. Wow.
This was mostly Mid-Journey again, but separate images. I think the primary image in the middle, and this is one of the places where the prompt was something so far off of what I got, and I'm trying to find, I think maybe the next screen here. It was It was a Manatee Insanity, surreal painting, underwater scene, Michael Parks 2, Medios Varos 2, surreal, unearthly, superfine detail, vivid Beksinski colors, Ryden, Greebles, no people. I think that was the starting of it. So,
wow.
and I ended up, it might have been some derivative from that, but I think that was where it started, and that was the central woman sitting on this craft. But the water was all added in Photoshop, and the clouds were from another Mid-Journey render, so I took that out of another illustration and brought that in. And the fish, I think the fish was on the left was generative fill in Photoshop.
Uh-huh.
I think that was one. It was like 15 different ones I rendered in there that none of them really worked, but that finally met the style. So,
What were you smoking? What were you smoking before you came up with that prompt?
Nothing at all. But,
it reminds me, what was your mongoose one that you did a long time ago?
Oh, the an obtuse. No, let's see. It was a puce moose and an obtuse mongoose let loose with a goose, chartreuse goose,
Yeah.
or something like that.
The AI guy's going, what the? This is incredible. I mean, it has a very cool, the stylizing of all the subject, the parts on the boat, or whatever you want to call this thing. It's incredible.
It reminds me of Dorothea Tanning, Max Ernst's wife.
There you go.
Don't know that.
Yeah, Dorothea Tanning.
Interesting is this discussion about, this whole thing about stealing images, because people are putting in artist styles and things. I was thinking about it the other day. I can remember our photo meetings that we used to do up in Irvine, they were live critique sessions where people brought in prints. There was one guy in the group who was really well versed in, the history of photography and art. And it would be like every time somebody put something up, he would go, "Oh, this feels kind of derivative of so-and-so." It's like, aren't we all a little derivative of so-and-so, it seems like, right? I mean, my early work was 4x5 black and white landscape, and I constantly got the Ansel Adams comparison, but that was that was my mentor in beginning photography, you know. So it was, in some ways, it was sort of a compliment to go, wow, okay, I achieved this. Look, I look like my images remind people of Ansel Adams. But this idea that we can pretend to work in a way that is completely unique or separate from anybody else in history. If you're doing that, then you probably are on your way to being a historical artist. Most of us are just doing it because we love to do it, and we're amazed by what comes out of it, and it becomes a part of your life. We had our panel discussion we had at the museum this last week about that, you know, creating art in today's world. Um, you know, very few people. I even asked the group. I go, how many people here got into art because they wanted to be rich and famous? It's like, first of all, nobody dare raise your hand to the question, anyhow. But yeah, if that's the reason you got into it, I think you would have given it up a long time ago. People keep doing it because it's more edifying than that, I think. Any comments for Greg as we're going through here? I didn't open it up for everybody else.
Yeah, Linda here.
Yeah.
I love your work, Greg. This piece reminds me a little bit of James Christensen's work. Anybody familiar with him?
Yeah, it's got some of that. His work has got a lot more going on in the backgrounds and stuff. That I wrote his name down as one of the people I wanted to try referencing, but I haven't gotten to that yet.
Really, really cool. I love your first piece too. It's so three-dimensional. It just draws you into that vortex, and he's so relaxed, and there's all this chaos going on around him.
Yeah.
It's mesmerizing.
Yeah.
So cool. Really neat.
Yeah, there's a story, or as Kurt Lightfoot loves to say, the narrative. There's these great sort of narratives that you could create around each one of them. All right.
I think that's what really kind of all the things that come together. I mean, there's so many of the images that are generated that really aren't that, don't have that.
Right.
The ones that do are the ones that I kind of latch on. And like this one, there's so many little details in here, and I want to remove a lot of it and clean it up and tighten up the narrative. And I like it as it is, but it could be stronger. And one of the things AI gives me it gives me a really strong set of elements to work with, and now it's sort of carving away some of the ones that are just in the way of what's the relationship between the woman and the fish and the craft. And like, she's steering this thing, but maybe that should be simpler, and she should have a fishing pole or something. Or so it makes me push myself, and in order for me to be good, I have to be better at my craft in order to integrate my work into these things.
Right.
So it pushes me to really to work on those things, like the narrative, like the detail, and the integrity of all of these random pieces that I'm putting together.
Yeah, and there's something about that you said that I think is interesting too. Is that it's sort of this thing about, you know, you're creating something. The machine creates something from your prompt. It then speaks back to you. You're inspired to take it into another direction again. And this was sort of my argument about this whole process in the beginning, and that is, these things would not exist. All these new images would not exist. They wouldn't be coming out of my head by myself. They wouldn't exist if we didn't have this process. The thing, like you're saying, I think is the most important part, though, is when you start to recognize, again, because you have this creative background, your background also of creating images like this from scratch, you have this ability then to have a better understanding about what's working, what doesn't work. It's kind of like the Jerry Yulesman thing, right? Where, yeah, anybody can put together four negatives and create something, and especially now that we're in Photoshop, photo compositing is real simple. but it doesn't always work. Jerry Yulesman even had said at one time, he goes, yeah, sometimes no matter how good I am, I still create stupid images. I mean, he recognizes it, right? You're working in one direction, and then all of a sudden you think you're done, and then 3 days later you look at it and you go, wow, that is just really stupid. But that's it, is that you have to create a lot of stuff in order to get to those sort of jewels that kind of come up, and that's part of this process. Is you work with it a lot, and a lot of it ends up just being nothing. And I like what you're talking about doing, because I think that's one of the things too, is adding the clouds, adding the fish, adding things to this process, going through multiple images that you've already created using Midjourney, and grabbing pieces from all of those to build something new. To me, it's like a candy store full of stock photo stuff or stock illustrations that you can do whatever you want with it, because your partner in this doesn't give a crap what you do to their art. It's like, how dare you do this to my art? It's like, yeah, no, they don't care. That was my big thing, was like, oh, look, I can do whatever I want to this. I'm not going to get any kind of, brushback from AI about what I did to their work. It becomes us. Wow.
And the prompt for this one was something about was trying to get a ferret, the weasel-like ferret, look with it was a ferret with the face of a woman, and somehow it got no ferret and this woman, and I don't remember, the fish was down at the bottom, and the hand was upside down, one of those really tweaky Midjourney hands, and I'm still not happy with the hand, and I think I'm gonna do paint in something, probably, because I've been trying to get a hand, but I want one that looks a little like a flipper or a fin.
Interesting.
And so I'm probably going to work on that some more.
Wow.
So.
Yeah.
But I like
cool.
the interrelationship.
All right. Any comments for Greg here?
I'm just curious, because I haven't done the AI, I haven't done any of the prompts, but the little specks on the bubbles, like the red above her skirt, and just the little specks on the bubble. Did you add that in, or like there?
The red was in the dress, and the again, I added a bunch of space, using the generative expand function. I added stuff at the outside edges of it, because it was really tightly cropped, like the middle 2/3 of it. So I added the outer third on either end. And then the bubbles that are there were from another image that was also rendered in Midjourney. And so I'm using just a little bit of opacity there.
It's just like the green, it looks like whether it's seaweed or just a portion of the bubble, because it gives it dimension. But the little green, like whatever, they're just a few millimeters long.
There's
that big bubble
layered in there.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. It seems like, for whatever reason, Midjourney seems to want to, many times, if you aren't getting real specific about space, it wants to always be tight on everything. And so they've now, in Midjourney, they've added that zoom out feature where you can zoom out from the creation. You could also, take the piece into Photoshop, like Greg was saying, and do the generative expand. And then, I mean, this was the exciting thing, is like, yeah, when this stuff ended up in Photoshop, and now you combine these programs together, using the things that you can do in Photoshop with the generative fill and the AI, and then back to using it on your Midjourney images. This thing just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And it reminded me of, like, so when Photoshop came out, Photoshop was this thing, and then people started creating plugins that went into Photoshop. Then all of a sudden Photoshop just became this enormous thing, like, oh, wait a minute, I can add a plugin into here that does this or does that. And that's kind of the feeling with what Photoshop is, sort of like this. It's not a plug-in, it's an external plug that you can throw the images into and continue to work on them. Very cool. I like this. All right. Any last comments for Greg before we jump out of there?
I want to say one thing, Greg. I'm finishing a big project up in Irvine, and this is a very high-end luxury condos, and this is the kind of stuff they're looking for.
Wow.
So they have a lot of money. The size of the condos are like double-story, long hallways, and when I'm interviewing clients up there, the first thing they're saying to me is, give me something unusual, give me something that will study, particularly in the entryway of these things. I think you've got a very nice niche here in terms of a marketplace for people that want this kind of thing to look at, because you can spend a lot of time looking at it versus going, oh, that's a nice seascape, kind of thing. This is something you study and becomes mesmerizing in many ways. So really well done.
Thank you.
And I think it's important that customers really don't give a damn how you made it.
Right. Yep. Yeah. No, that's exactly it. I forget that guy's name. Probably about a year or two ago, he created a whole series of images. He did them as editions of, I think they were 25. They were all one size, like 20 by 30. Sold them out.
John S. Peterson.
Yeah, sold them out in a month. His whole series sold out in a month. And he was like, I'm going to be upfront with you about this. It's not a photograph. It's not a painting. Here's some blown up details of sections. It's all created between me and a machine. People didn't care. They were cool. They bought them. They were, and I also have this thing about, the people early on, they're still doing it, but people that were early on that were generating AI images and putting them into photo contests that said you can't use AI images in the photo contest, they were doing them anyhow, and they're winning. And so it was this thing like, they're winning because these images, they're so fresh and new, and what comes out is so different than what we were doing with cameras. And I remember one guy, a photographer, had made that comment. He goes, "Oh, I went into Midjourney the first time just to prove what a piece of shit this whole AI thing was supposed to be." And he says, after generating more than a handful of these things, he's like, "Are you kidding me? I've spent 30 years learning to be a photographer, and now this thing has only been working for about 3 years, and it's already surpassed me by a mile." And it was like, wow, an honest photographer talking about the process, going, yeah, this is amazing. And I love what Greg said before too about AI has this uncanny ability to create lighting in these situations, like Greg was saying, that feels like beyond what I could do to my own work if I were creating these things from scratch. That idea of lighting and shading and all that stuff that happens in here, it's an amazing effect. And I think that it does have a specific look and feel to it. I said about digital photography years ago, I said, we're not looking at your grandfather's photographs anymore. When we went from darkroom to digital, photography looked different all of a sudden. People were complaining, oh, they're too saturated, they're too sharp, they're too blah, blah, blah. And I go, yeah, no, these are too much shadow detail. I go, really? Can you ever have too much shadow detail? I mean, Ansel Adams spent his whole life trying to light up zone 0, 1, 2, and 3. And so I think this whole idea that we have this ability technically to make photographs look different than they did, that long ago. A friend of mine said that to me too. He goes, look, if we're only going to work our ass off to make this new process look like something that's already 200 years old, then it's a total waste of time. Why bother if we're not going to try to make it something new? Digital photography, became that, and then this thing happened. All right, thanks, Greg. Those are always fun. Judy McLean is here. Now, Judy, I didn't get a chance to look at these much, but I was looking at them as they were downloading. I don't know if these are in order. You tell me. How we want to...
Yeah, I think
okay.
They're in order.
All right.
So this is the final, but then I'm going to go through the others are in process.
Uh-huh.
So I had this poem that I learned when I was a kid, and it was just going around. Somehow it stuck in my memory. About 30 purple birds.
This sounds like something that Greg would write.
Sitting on the curb, chirping and burping and eating dirty worms. along came skirt and along came Bert and his skirt named Mert, who worked at the shirt factory down in Jersey. When Bert and Mert saw the 30 purple birds sitting on the curb, chirping and burping and eating dirty worms, boy, were they perturbed.
So where did you generate the parts to this?
Well, this was all in Firefly.
Okay.
So,
so you want to go through the pieces?
Yes.
Okay.
So I started out, so I started out thinking I could make it photographically, but that did not work.
And you know what's interesting too is when you start off here with your prompt, 30 purple birds eating worms, I have had zero success with numbers. It's like, you put in 5, you put in 10, you put in 3, you get anything but the number that you asked for, it seems like.
Right. So I discovered that you can't put 30 in, but you can say a flock of birds, and then you get a bunch of them.
Okay, so this one down here in the bottom.
So that's the second one here.
Angry boy.
I added kids.
Large flock.
But I wanted them angry.
Right, and they don't.
And it just does not make angry kids.
Wow.
They're just not angry in the AI world.
That's
at least not photographically.
That's interesting too. That it's sort of without even putting in prompts, it built in its own depth of field also, which is interesting too. That definitely makes it feel more photographic and natural. But this one here, this has like quite a few of the birds in the background.
Yeah. So since it doesn't seem to be able to count 30, I just said, okay, a large flock of small birds. So then I I kept like increasing the intensity of the angriness.
Yeah.
Very upset, angry, frowning teenage boys.
They're still happy.
Yeah. So I didn't want them. They were too young in the other one, and it wasn't listening to my prompts. So then I decided, well, they'll look more angry if they have shaking fists or something. But they're still laughing.
Right.
Rock, paper, scissors there.
Right. Interesting too. I mean, there are some, filters built in, because I remember early on asking, even like inside Photoshop, which is interesting because supposedly the Photoshop AI function is supposed to be connected to the same, machine as they're using in Firefly, but it seems to create completely different results. They don't seem to be the same at all. But trying to even generate things like fire and stuff like that, early on you would get these warnings like, improper image content, and so I mean maybe there's something in there that's not going to allow them to create angry faces on children. I don't know, because I know that especially Firefly has more of those controls in it than Midjourney does. But you could. Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see. If you took the kids in Photoshop, selected the faces and asked it to do, create angry faces. If it would actually replace the face there, I don't know. And then the bottom.
I don't know.
Yeah,
and then they weren't standing. Only a few of them were standing, even though standing was part of the prompt. So then I guess I just took standing out. And
so also, if you haven't worked with Firefly, these styles, photo, harsh light, muted color, these things, they're things on the side that you can make selections to. So essentially these become kind of part of your prompt too. So you can add to it using those things that are there.
You can see that I was experimenting with different colors between this page and the previous one, where I hadn't added that.
So this has more muted colors.
Muted colors, because and I didn't see any worms. I don't know. The birds were mostly not eating. Very few of them were actually eating.
So here you changed from photo to art, wide angle nostalgia,
so then I decided
watercolor.
Realism wasn't going to work. So I went art, and I thought, well, okay, maybe if they're not angry, they can be worried.
Oh yeah. So they're not as happy in some of them. they're not shaking their fist like they were in the last one.
Yeah, I'm not. Oh, yeah, shaking. Even though that was part of the font.
Yeah.
I mean, prompt.
Wow. So you must have added in the vibrant
So,
colors. Yeah. Changed
yeah,
it.
then I went into like surreal lighting and vibrant colors. Like, okay.
But really weird. Look at the,
Yeah,
I mean, the faces on these are like all
and the kids are still so
messed
happy.
up. They're happy, but they're all messed up in the face. Some of these are,
I know.
yeah.
It's
That's
like,
and
it doesn't.
those are more, realistic cartoon looking things. These all have
Yeah,
weird
they're
faces.
very
Yeah.
cartoonish.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why I figured going towards the art would be,
Yeah.
'cause it has trouble with realistic faces, and I guess AI doesn't know that angry means eyebrows that go down, not up.
Right. No smiles. So that's the other thing I don't
Yeah.
know because I haven't used the Firefly much, but like in Midjourney, you can use negative prompting. So like you could say no smiles or something like that. And I don't, it's an interesting part of this process too, is learning this language, right? And I've shown
Yeah.
before, like with Midjourney, they have this sort of reverse process where you can put an image in there and then use this / describe, and it will write prompts for the image that you put in. And it's a great way to learn that language. Like I just remember, like early on, I was being real basic about it and saying, using like a color red or, very simple red or green. Well, I put an image in where somebody's wearing red and it comes up with the word scarlet. And you go, oh, wait a minute. It understands more complex colors than just red, green, or blue. It
Oh,
picked up
okay.
on the scarlet color. So, yeah, and the other thing, too, even inside of Firefly, you can go to that page where they post you can see all the work as you scroll down. And if you hover on them, it'll show you the prompts. And that's a great way too. So like in Midjourney, if you're scrolling through the public forums, you can see what they did for their prompts. So it's a great way to learn also what results people are getting based on which prompts they're using. So you ended up.
Yeah. Well, so Firefly actually does have a negative. Yeah. He really got cartoonish. And so it was like the birds became angry.
Confused.
Or confused. Something, I don't know. It's just,
Wow.
these might not be in the order that I did them, but.
Oh, there we go. Now we got some sad. So what'd you change on here?
So now, yeah, so now we finally got, I don't know. So this was back when I was still using 30 purple birds, but.
Yeah. And that's just art. You didn't put in any other styles or anything.
Right. This I just let it do its own thing, and
it's interesting under
the birds
art.
Became angry.
Under art, that it would interpret it as more cartoon than say a painting by somebody, more not realistic painting.
Yeah, I didn't give it any. I didn't select like I did on some of the others.
Now, Greg has this theory, and I start to wonder, is like because of the previous results, if they are actually dictating to the machine, future results, if it's looking at those previous results. So I don't know if
I don't think so, because this one was actually done earlier.
Oh,
I just put it in this. Yeah. I just put it in this order.
Because I was wondering if that's how it picked up on the cartoon idea when you just put in art.
No.
Well, now you got worms at least.
But yeah.
Worms and grubs.
Worms and grubs, and still didn't pay attention to the 30, but I think.
And also in some of them.
I added flock when I added. Watching a flock of 30 purple birds.
And no boy or girl in 2 out of the 4.
Right.
No boy out of 3 of the 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, getting the results that you want can be pretty challenging. So
I finally decided on this one, but I thought her dress was weird.
Yeah.
her skirt. So I just circled that. I mean, look at that.
Yeah.
Is she sitting in a chair, or is that an actual? Yeah, what is
It's a
that?
chair dress. And her
Chair dress.
hand is odd. Looks like she's actually lost her hand.
I know.
She's an amputee.
Well, maybe I didn't change that on the
But
other
again,
one.
that's the cool thing now. So you got so many of these things you could borrow, dresses and hands and eyes or whatever you want to do.
Well, I just circled that and said purple skirt or something. But it fixed her hands too.
Yeah.
So I must have noticed that. And then I.
Oh,
then
so
I
that's the one you
extended
used here. Okay.
That's the one we used. So I extended it and, added in some more birds. And anyway, it's a work in progress.
Let's see that one together.
So those are all the parts.
There we go. Wow.
And I created those extra birds to go at the bottom.
So again, this is one of those things I think where, it's like, it's just a bunch of button pushing, prompting, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, sometimes, the guy that won that Colorado contest years ago, not years ago, but at the beginning of this whole thing, he in his interview, he made that comment like, yeah, no, I generated hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these things and then still had to take it into Photoshop and manipulate the image to get what I got. It's not like I just grabbed the one that I thought looked the best. It still took a lot of work even after the fact. And he says, so I have a lot of hours. And his comment was, in fact, I probably have more hours into this AI generated image than I have in most of my camera, images. So yeah, it's not as automated as a lot of people would like to believe, as well as creating photographs is not as automated as most people would like to believe. Like, oh, you just push a button and get an image, right? So it's a lot more work than that. All right.
I was kind of impressed with how the expand were, it filled in pretty well, really matched the other birds.
Mm-hmm. Any comments or questions for Judy?
Continued the curb and everything.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Everybody's going to go.
Really cool to see your process. I like the result that you got at the end there. And seeing all the photographic, all these different
photographic failures.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always a part of the learning curve.
Well, and I think
I just put something in the Mid-Journey to try something like that, and I got cartoony style stuff, but I could see how even with that, it would have taken a long time to get close to the composition and the elements of what the story tells there.
Right.
But in the end, I think also the image you have at the end, the style of it fits sort of the quirkiness of the poem better than a photograph would have done.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
So
yeah, I realized that was probably the better choice.
yeah,
and plus the kid actually did have sort of angry, worried.
yeah, right. No, yeah, I
perturbed.
think it's interesting. You did get this look at the end, right?
Yeah.
In fact, looks like she's going, ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That fits the word perturbed, right?
Right. But I think that there also, I mean, this sort of, I think, also goes to the idea of sort of being inspired, like, I mean, starting from here, and then as things start to change, you sort of get inspired and go, oh, well, wait a minute, maybe the cartoon thing's going to look better, and in the end, it actually does. And so, it's like you become informed by the process, and that's part of, I think, what makes it an interesting, pursuit, is that you more than likely will not end up where you started from. It's like, because that's one of the things I heard early on about, if you're working with AI, you have to kind of give up, you have to drop your expectations when you first start, because you're probably not going to get exactly what you want. I mean, I had one that I worked on a long time ago. I've shared it before, but I was working on this idea of the word portal, creating a portal, a passage, between spaces. And
Right.
without even asking for it, it generated this fiery portal. And I'm like, oh, come on, that is so cool. And it was like something that I wouldn't have thought of doing, but how it came up
It's
with.
like better than you thought.
Right, yeah. So and that becomes and then when that happens, you go, oh well, wait a minute. Maybe you start thinking about it in a whole other direction, and it definitely becomes that sort of being inspired by the inspiration of your words. It totally is this collaborative process. I think it's just pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool, Judy.
Well, I love like Greg's the shark one where the waves were just mimicking the shapes of the teeth of the beast, whatever kind of beast it was.
Yeah.
It just and then the other one, you can just like stare at it for hours because there's so much detail on different things. And so it's just a whole new universe.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Did Kaz leave? Oh, there he is. See how this thing came in? It just came in as a weird icon.
Oh, yeah.
So where is the beginning? So here's your first one. So tell us.
Yeah. So let's talk about the differences in the process of how people are using AI. For instance, like Greg is using. I keep thinking about Saul LeWitt, his sentences on conceptual art, and one of the things that he did was delineate this idea of conceptual art versus perceptual art, where so many artists, if not every I guess he's trying to make the statement that everybody before conceptual art basically created something on the painting and then started perceiving things in it and changing the painting. And it was a process of building on it, kind of like what Greg is doing, very perceptual, whereas Saul LeWitt was talking about conceptual art. You have a concept beforehand and you run through the process. Now, so my work is like I have a vision of what I want, and that's why I'm so frustrated with Midjourney, because you just never get what you envision. So you have to go through 100 prompts, trying to find something that fits the vision. So this piece, I don't know if anybody pays attention of Kurt Lightfoot and I, what our conversations on Facebook, but we get into a lot of very philosophical and concept dialogues dealing with Buddhism and Hinduism, Advaita Vedanta, and these sort of things. And I, through meditation, I came to the understanding of how difficult the concept of space is, and space doesn't really have, it doesn't exist until you put a container around it. And wisdom flows through everything, and if you don't put a context on it, you can't get a hold of it. And then all of these different philosophical and religious traditions have a different context, a different wisdom. So I wanted to create a piece that dealt with Jesus, the Buddha, and Brahman. And Brahman is a deity in Hinduism. And Brahman in Hindu work really has its own style. So this is one, after countless iterations, this thing popped up, and I said, well, this is interesting because it's blending Jesus and Buddha together, and it doesn't really have these characters on the side look like disciples of the Buddha, or it could be disciples. Well, the one on the left, definitely that curly hair, that's very Buddhist. And so I said, well, I can turn him into a Buddha. I've got a blend of Buddha and Jesus, but then of course I've got all this mid-journey crap to deal with, like that Jesus' hand, the one that's on his lap. If you zoom into it, it's got, like he's holding a turd or something. I don't know. And then this little character over on the right-hand lower side, he's got 2 right arms.
His hands turned outward.
and then he's got this giant sausage-looking thing. It's like, I can't. I got to get rid of that.
Right.
The toes on these figures, or on the left figure there, is more Mid-Journey junk.
Yeah.
And so I gotta fix that. So then I needed to create, like I say, a Hindu figure, and so that I chose the guy on the right to be a Hindu figure, since the one on the left has a Buddhist thing. So I photoshopped some. Of course, I use Affinity Photo, but I Photoshop's like Coke, right? I photoshopped some icons onto their chest.
Oh.
To do that, and then I created a math poem that basically says that space is to a container as wisdom is to a context. So we can go to the next image there. You can see how I fixed.
So for those of you that
see.
don't know Kaz and his mathematical poetry, that's what we're witnessing here is Kaz's mathematical poetry.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, look, that's better than the turd. The ball.
Yeah, and that's also a Buddhist icon with Kitty Sarba holding a medicine ball. So that fits in. So I get a good blend of Jesus and the Buddha. I turn the guy on the right as a Hindu. He's got a Hindu Om symbol medallion hanging around his neck. I added that. I added the boa, or whatever you want to call that, around his neck.
Well, that's pretty
and
good.
Then that's a traditional hat of the deities as well that are Hindu. And then on the Buddha, I added a medallion of the swastika, which is a Buddhist symbol.
Right.
And then I fixed the hands and the fingers and the toes and all of that stuff. And then that sausage that guy had, I just hit it with a shield. Right. I hit her, 2 right arms. I got rid of the bad arm and hit it with a shield. And then I added the math poem, which again says space, or you can read it many different ways, but space, we can read it, space is to wisdom, as the container is to a context. These are all based off of the similar triangles structure in math, where we're mapping the proportional legs to each other. So overall, I thought it came out good. It followed what my vision was, of course, with a lot of extra work, but.
But then don't you feel like you're more of the process, like Greg was saying? If it just gave everything to you, what's the value in that?
No, but I had a vision up front. This is what I envisioned. Yeah. Whereas Greg's process, he didn't envision, those the stars and stuff before he made the prompt.
Right.
I had a vision before I made the prompt.
Yep.
What I wanted.
Yeah.
And this came pretty darn close to it.
God, I mean the detail that it created and all this and the whole sculptural, and again, like Greg's saying, the lighting, about the way these things, the light that hits the upper part here, the shadowing, the whole dimensionality of this feeling like stone, and it's incredible.
Yeah.
So, Kaz, at the beginning of when you started to describe this, you're doing the conceptual part and AI is doing the perceptual part?
Conceptual, yeah. I had a vision up front, a concept up front that I wanted to execute. I wanted to talk about, the equation came first. That's what I started with, was space is to wisdom as the container is to a context. I wanted something that I can map into this to create a poetic expression. Creating metaphors, and you have metaphors inside the equation as well, because space is rigid, it's concrete, so that's the source domain of a metaphor, and the target domain has to be abstract. So wisdom is abstract. So space is to wisdom is a metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
And then the container to a context, the container is rigid, and the context is not as rigid. But then there's another thing that goes on in poetic expressions is called conceptual blending, and where you have two concepts and then you try to merge them together and create something new from that merge. And so I'm playing with all of those different ideas, and then trying to come up with a visual expression to connect all of it together.
Incredible. I love it.
So if there's not any questions or anything on that, then I sent you 4 other things that I want to talk about those real quick if I can.
Sure.
The genus Buddha is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, my Zen teacher studied at Harvard's Divinity School and then became a Buddhist monk. So he's really blends this Jesus and Buddha together a lot.
Wow.
I haven't shown it to him yet, but I think he'll like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what his response is when you showed this to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just posted on Facebook his TED Talk if you're interested. My Zen teacher.
Very cool.
Anything else?
I really love this. It was the traffic sign in the background part of your concept?
or is it this here? Or this?
Oh, there's a traffic. It looks like
that looks like a light.
That looks like a light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or whatever that is. Okay.
A light bulb.
I'd take it out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I could take that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's bothering you, Judy. I guess I can take that out for you.
Also weird. I didn't notice till I zoomed in, but
light that they're all representing, right?
like there's some weird thing here that might be. I don't know. It's a camera. Security camera under the eave. That's funny.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, you really have to poke around, to see if there's, something that shouldn't be here.
This little character in the lower left hand is really bizarre. I didn't know. It was just bizarre enough that I said, that's crazy enough. I'm just going to leave it.
Right.
But I can't tell what's going on under the robes there, right in between his legs, or I don't know what that is.
Is the face turned away, or
it looks like right?
I don't know what it is. It almost looks like
face.
It's a creature with a draped face or something.
Oh.
Well,
and the only other thing I noticed was go up a little bit. The 2 hands that are facing palms out, they look like the identical hand. But
these 2.
Not. I don't know.
They're a little different.
Or it's just the lighting is. They got the same palm.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if I didn't copy that over, because if we go back to the first one, let's see if his hands messed up. The guy on the right, and I may have copied that over, and I don't know.
It's going to confuse the palm readers.
Is this the new one?
It's going to.
That's the original.
Blending gurus together. So.
No, it made those hands look the same. They're real close. They're not.
Yeah, they are similar, but
they're real close.
Little different.
It's just going to be confusing to a palm reader. The lifeline is exactly the same.
Yeah.
That's a very cool concept, though. I really like it.
Also, so a technical question.
Oh.
Oh, I see it just hadn't zoomed in. I was gonna say the final one looks like it's even a little sharper. What do you use to sharp? Do you sharpen the AI images afterwards?
I don't remember. I'm sure I tweaked some things, but I'm not sure. Those sort of things I don't remember
Right.
as much.
Well, I think Joseph Campbell would approve
Right,
of your
yeah.
project.
Yeah, Campbell's a big influence. That's for sure.
Yeah. I remember when I had discovered Joseph Campbell years ago, and I gave my mom this book, the one with the Bill Moyers conversation. They turned it into a book.
Power of
Yeah.
Myth.
So they turned that whole
Power
thing into a
Power
book.
of Myth.
So I gave it to my mom and go, "Oh, you got to read this." And after she read it, I go, "What'd you think?" She goes, there wasn't anything interesting in there." I was like, "Oh, okay, never mind."
She's probably a pious Christian.
Well, worse than that, they were Mormons.
Oh.
I love that response.
Yeah.
Oh, that explains a lot about Vogel. Jeez. All right. Thanks, Kaz. Very cool.
So did you get the other 4 images?
No. Let me look.
I sent you an email, and I want to talk a little bit about them because I'm so irritated.
Did you send it today? Did you just send it just now, Kaz?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I
don't see it here.
Maybe.
The last one I got from you was the after image, the final. And the last email I've gotten tonight was from Greg.
Okay. Well, what I wanted to do to talk about is it may be that the files were too big.
That could be. It's somewhere around 20 or 22 megabytes for Gmail, I think.
Yeah, I just sent you one. Let me see if I can find it. So, okay, so basically what I wanted to talk about is because AI, I've been doing digital art for 40 years, but different kinds of digital art. But for the last 20 years, I've been doing a lot of these math poems and using digital imagery. But this AI and Midjourney and all this has really shook me up. So I've gone back to my roots, and I started wanting to do drawings, pencil. So I'm creating a new proportional poem, the same structure with drawings. And so I sent Larry a Hummer, a Lamborghini, a hammer, and a sword. So I'm making these comparisons between a Hummer and a Lamborghini, and now what weapons, match those. Okay, everybody so far has said the hammer goes with the Hummer and the sword goes with the Lamborghini.
I'm going with the lightsaber.
I'm just creating this, but I wanted to do the drawings, and since I really don't have a Hummer in my head, I need a photo. Well, I don't know if you all remember, but the Andy Warhol Foundation got sued by a photographer who shot a picture of Prince.
Yeah.
And Warhol did pretty much a copy. I mean, he changed it a bunch, but still, he lost the lawsuit.
Yep.
So since AI is not copyrightable, I just had AI create the Hummer and the Lamborghini and the hammer for me. I tried to get it to create the sword, but it just kept creating these Lord of the Rings kind of Celtic looking, you know, and I'm asking it for an Italian broadsword, you know, like a 18th century Italian broadsword, and it just would not do it. So I just went ahead, found an image on the internet, and modified it enough, hoping that I've modified it enough that I don't get sued if I were ever able to make a dime on it anyway.
Right.
So I'm living in my delusions of grandeur.
Well, you know, the biggest part of those lawsuits is the other person has to be able to claim damages. And so it's like, yeah, if you haven't made a dime off of it or you haven't hurt their business, probably not going to be a problem. Warhol, on the other hand, or at least the Warhol Foundation was the ones who got sued, made millions. But you can do so. Back to the Mid-Journey thing is, and I've done this before too, and this is a weird thing too about people, you know, crying about Mid-Journey scraping my website and stealing my art, blah blah blah. The thing is now, because the way Mid-Journey functions, you know, is that you can put images into Mid-Journey. So I can scrape somebody's website now. I could go find that sword and input it into Mid-Journey and then have it create something from that. It would be a lot closer than trying to do it with a prompt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So none of those images came through, I guess?
I don't see it yet. No. I don't know why. Keep hitting refresh and nothing happens.
Look, can I share my screen?
It'll
give you an idea what they look like.
There's a possibility. Oops. Let me go to Kaz. Make you the presenter. I'll say yes. And then you have to approve that. And then do the share your screen at the bottom.
Yeah. So,
are you on a Mac?
Yeah, and I'm fixing the problem. Yeah.
Mac is the funky one. It asks for all kinds of permissions.
Oh, yeah.
We need your permission to show your screen.
It's making me restart.
Did he try to send it through email instead of?
He did.
Okay. Well, it's still not letting me share. That's weird.
Kaz, did you send it through Hightail? Because that will accept bigger files than email.
You reduced it to a JPEG?
Yeah, these were small, and I tried sending it to you off of my phone. I mean,
well, let's do this. I'll, if you want to try sending again, let me go back to my screen.
I would try sending it again, but this time I'm going to go.
So what I'm going to do is I'll keep a lookout for it. You go ahead and send it again. I'm going to go ahead. We'll move on to our last one.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
Paul is our last person tonight. Paul's still here?
I bored him to death.
We did. Paul's gone.
Yeah, it's very good, cool stuff.
Paul had to go to bed. So we don't have to... Paul left. If I would have known Paul was going to go to bed, I would have shown him earlier.
Kaz, I thought your piece was very bold and very cool.
Well, thank you.
You did a really good job of integrating all those.
The algebra throws me off a little bit, but the logic works. So.
I'm with you, Kurt. It always throws me off. I thought it was just me. I love this though. Like now that they're, here it is in the bridge.
Yeah, right.
And when you flip back and forth, you get a better idea of what the new, like especially the guy on the right with the hat. And I agree. I think the integration of the new pieces is pretty incredible. It works. It works. The color, it all fits in pretty good.
I tried sending you another email. I don't know if. Oh no! I just heard it whoosh, so it just
All
left.
right.
Oh, hopefully it's not too big.
Oh, just got it.
Did you get it?
All right. So
those will show you the drawings.
Let me download these
They're in pencil.
into.
And so, yeah, this whole AI thing has really kind of forced me to go back into my roots. And I haven't done any drawings in, 20, 30 years. I don't know. It's been a long time.
Weird to have to do them one at a time, but that's okay. There's 3 of them. Oh, 4. Okay.
There's 4, yeah, because it's the Hummer is to the hammer.
Now, I remember, you showed a piece at Oceanside Museum of Art on our critique night of your pencil drawing.
You're right.
Yeah. And that was actually pretty cool. Let's see.
And, yeah, it just made a liar out of me. I said I haven't done anything in 30 years, but that one that's the exception, yeah.
Well, I wasn't trying to catch you in anything.
Well, yeah.
All right, so let me rotate these things. So there's that one. So there's the Hummer.
Yeah, so that's the Hummer.
Wow.
So you can see it's pencil, and basically I use Midjourney to create the Lamborghini. I don't even know if how accurate this Lamborghini is. If it really looks like a Lamborghini, it looks close enough. The hammer was actually the most difficult thing to draw. Try to get all of that texture in the wood.
It's really nice.
So, hang on.
I don't know if you got the sword, but the sword was.
It's weird. It's showing up as a +1 instead of a link, and they're all huge. Let me see if I can find it in the email. Maybe it's the last one.
It probably was the last one. Yeah.
They're too big. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, so save as.
So the Hummer is to the hammer is the.
Okay, let's do this. The Hummer is to the hammer as the Lamborghini is to the sword.
Yeah.
There's the sword. All right.
There you go. Yeah, well, that's perfect. That's exactly the way. So you would have the Hummer divided by the Lamborghini equals the hammer divided by the sword.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna hire somebody to do the math symbols out of mahogany.
Wow.
And then so this whole thing will be 12 feet long mounted on a wall.
What?
The whole equation. Yeah. These things are 14 by 17.
Wow.
The paper.
Wow.
Well, I look forward to seeing the whole thing put together.
Yeah, me too.
It's like, what's his name? At the Artist Alliance, Steve, I can't remember his last name now. Steve H. Har. Anyhow, he's doing this project where he's doing these triptychs, and there's going to be 100 of them. That's 300 drawings he's doing, and he's a third of the way through it. So he has 100 of them done, and he displayed them at this. I went to look at them. He had them hanging on a wall in this place where a guy had a big enough space, a gallery space where he could hang them. It was incredible, but it's like, wow, what an undertaking, to create a project with 300 triptychs, and they're all drawn from his they're partially drawn from photographs or digital creations where he's creating them digitally and then painting the whole thing over again. And they're about, I think they're probably at least 24 by 36 sheets. They're all the same sizes. All right. Well.
But the reason I brought it into this form is because AI was used on these things.
So explain the AI part of it again.
So I didn't want to use somebody's photo of a Hummer because they could come after me, right? Mm-hmm. And so I just did a prompt, of a Hummer. And I did a few prompts, and picked this one out of, I don't know, that probably had 10 different Hummers that I could choose from. And this one, to me, typified what a Hummer looks like. So I chose that, and
I was trying to avoid sharing the story, but I've gone as long as I can without sharing it because you've laid out the perfect scenario for me. But on 2.5 Men one time on that episode was the young kid was just getting old enough to drive, so he was looking online for another car, and he comes back out and he says, "Uncle Charlie," he says, "you'd be surprised what comes up on the computer when you Google Hummer." so I was thinking how AI would interpret that. I guess you got the car, so you were lucky.
yeah, I was lucky. And then then a Lamborghini. I got a bunch of different Lamborghinis as well. And to tell you the truth, I'm obviously not obviously, but I don't have the money for a Lamborghini, so I wouldn't know. I wouldn't be able to judge how accurate that Lamborghini is.
It's interesting that you bring up an interesting thing that I am totally amazed that, like in this case, if you went and found a photograph online of the Hummer and you did a sketch of it, I could go online and I could probably find 1,000, of the same angle of that car, and question whether or not this one came from any one of those 1,000 photographs. But the idea that photographers are that egocentric and that driven, that's my photograph, how dare you create a sketch or a painting from it. And I thought I would never have a clue that I would be upset if somebody saw one of my photographs and did a painting from it. I go, that is cool. I would be honored to have somebody create a painting from one of my photographs. There's no way that I would sue somebody over something like that. I don't get the mentality that drives that at all.
Well, I think millions of dollars are involved.
Maybe not.
Well, it's different. Also, if you're hand drawing, even if you're tracing the outline of the Hummer and then filling in all your own lines, you're going to add a lot of unique character to it and put things in the wrong place. The thing with the Warhol image, I overlaid those two images, and the shadows were exactly in the same place.
Yeah.
All of the lines were, it was clearly the same thing, just posterized in whatever way, whether it was done pencil for the various different silkscreen colors or pens or whatever. But it was really identical.
Yeah.
And it was both were worth millions of dollars in advertising revenue. They were used for big campaigns where that really mattered. But somebody taking, you can take a collage, you can take a photo out of a magazine and put it into a collage.
Right.
And that's
yeah.
That's using that person's photo, but it's something else.
Right.
And and here you're using, even if you had used 4 photographs, you're putting it into another piece that's a unique thing with a different unique meaning in a different context.
Yeah, I would think it's transformed enough that they wouldn't come after me, but they might,
But here you get to put your own voice into it anyway.
Yeah.
And
I
think it'll be cool. Is it all on the same kind of paper?
Same kind of paper, yeah. It's all the same color. These photos screw it up. Yeah.
All right.
It's all the same paper.
All right. Well, here I was worried we weren't going to have enough to talk about tonight, and then everybody got the images in the last minute, and I was wrong. There's always something to talk about for the night. So thanks for everybody sending in their images to share. That's exciting. Again, it's like one of the best things about, I think, group things like this is at the very least we've seen how diverse everybody is. I don't think that there's hardly any comparison. This isn't even apples to oranges. This is apples to Lamborghinis. But I think that's incredible to see what everybody's doing, and the idea that using some of the same tools end up creating stuff that's so diverse, in appearance and methodology and with CAS mathematically speaking. Thanks everybody for sharing your images. Thanks everybody else for jumping in, being a part of the conversation. I do mention that the meetings are all recorded. For some reason, I got the recording started a little bit late on this one. So some of the fair conversation at the beginning won't end up there, but I do post the videos up on my YouTube channel. So if there's anything you want to go back and review other people's images or parts of the conversation or hear what other people are doing, you can always go to the channel and review the videos from the evening. The good news is there is a fast forward button, so you don't have to sit and listen to everything. So you can get through the whole meeting in about 10 minutes if you do it fast forward. All right, so thanks everyone. We will be back at what is our end of the month next month? March, and April will be the 25th. So last Thursday for AI, second Thursday for the regular DPX group. And they are two separate meetup groups, so if you're interested, you have to go to the other meetup page for the regular DPX to get the link to that meeting. Other than that, thanks a lot, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you, Larry.
Thanks, Larry. Great stuff.
All right, everybody, thanks for coming to DPX-AI tonight. And until we see each other next month, stay creative, be inspired, and be an inspiration to others.